G'day guys, welcome to the Sharni-Sode. Today's episode is all about Sharni, the brains behind Beyond the Close. Today's episode, we run through Sharni's journey from real estate, going through positive psychology, into recruitment, and now into remote sales recruitment. There's a lot of laughs, there are no tears, and there's a lot to pull out of this. She is an absolute professional at what she does in recruitment. I've learned so much from her. Check this one out. Hope you enjoy. Sharni, welcome to Beyond the Close.
Hey, babe. Thank you.
Great to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Best looking guest we've had.
Better than Brad Shepherd. What do you mean?
It's a hard act to follow. I will give you that. It's a strong beard that he's running.
Sure is. Yeah.
You've been busy.
We've been busy.
We have been busy. So we went full steam ahead with our recruitment training business around a month ago.
Yep.
100% all in. And we've had some big wins.
Huge wins.
And
it's hard to believe the wins that we've had.
And I heard you say yesterday that you have had a record amount of placements.
Yeah. This week I've had I think on Tuesday I had 6 offers accepted, and by the end of the week it'll be up to 8 or 9, which is not a record for me in business, but definitely a record for me on my own, because I'm used to having a whole team of people helping, and it's just me at the moment. So yeah, in terms of just my desk as it stands, absolutely record. So yeah, it's really cool.
It's been phenomenal to watch. I've been busy with the training element of our business. We've launched a sales course and some sales training, and so we're in the bunker. I'm in the bunker building the content, delivering the content. You've been working with clients, working with candidates, placing roles, being a mum, juggling. So I wanted to do this episode just to unpack your story, just to give our people who are listening to this a bit of context, and also just to help anyone who wants to recruit, build a team as well. It's helpful for that. But you started in real estate. What year was that?
Oh my gosh, I'm so terrible with dates, so I don't know what year. I think I was about 18 when I started in real estate. I started on reception when I was about 18, and quite quickly, probably the same year, I ended up working in sales. So
how did that go? So you were on the reception desk. So how old were you then? Was that your first job?
It was my second job. So my first job, so I went to uni for 2 weeks when I left school, and it was sort of just a bit of a point to prove. So for people who know me, I am if someone tells me I can't do something, then that's a big motivator for me. And so when I was in high school, I was pretty smart, but I was also loose. So I was told by one of my teachers, I was in this class, gifted smart kids class, and
the smart kids class.
It was called the GATS.
It was
called gifted and talented. But yeah, I was in this class, and there were 3 other kids. I didn't go to a big school, so there were 3 other kids, and they were all I think one of them was ducks of the school, the other one was runner-up ducks and whatever. So, but then there was me. It was going out on the weekends. I'd bender on the weekends. I wasn't just kind of going out, and yeah, it was pretty bad. And I didn't really turn up for class very often, but I'd won this test, and I remember I would come first in this test, and I remember saying I was really excited, and I went to my teacher who I really respected, and I was like, "Oh, sir, look, I got a really good mark. I'm super proud of it." And he's like, "Yeah, you'll be lucky if you pass your HSC." And I was like, "Oh." I tried hard. It may not seem like I'm trying hard, but I am. And so when he said that, I was like, I'm going to get into uni. And that was my one goal. And then when I got there, I went for 2 weeks, and I hated it. I remember calling my mum at 3 a.m. and I was like, it's terrible. I hate it. Nothing's really going on. No one's really doing much. They're kind of just turning up to classes. Not earning any money. I don't come from a background where I had financial backing. I had to work and fund myself to go through uni. And so I just decided, Mum was like, yeah, just leave. I don't even know why this is a conversation. It's not a big deal. So I left and got a job, and I just worked in admin, a traineeship. for a year, which was really cool. It's kind of set up a lot for me in terms of just how I operate. And so, yeah, about a year in, I decided that I wanted to go into real estate, and I didn't really know what it was all about at that point, but I'd always had an interest in property. I always had an interest in building wealth. And as I said, I didn't come from a background where I had much stability, freedom, safety, all that sort of stuff. And so that became a real core value for me, was freedom and creating freedom for myself, freedom to make my own decisions based on my values. And the way that I thought, bright 17-year-old that I was if I can get into property and like the numbers just made sense. I was like, I can create enough wealth that I don't have to do anything because someone else is telling me to do it. I can create freedom for myself. And so that's why I started in real estate. Long story, but yeah, that's why I started in real estate. As I said, I didn't really know what it was about. So I started on reception. I knew nothing about sales, but I started working with a business it was quite a large agency, and I was kind of like earmarked to go into property management. Thank God I didn't end up going into property management, but that was sort of what I thought I would do. And I had a manager at the time who laughed. I was like, oh, I just don't know if I want to go into property management. Like, I just don't know if it's me. And he's like, yeah, of course it's not you. Like, you're a salesperson. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not a salesperson. Like, I'm definitely not. And he's like, why not? And I said, well, I'm not confident enough. And he just laughed. He was like, that's hilarious. Like, you are 100% a salesperson. Like, go and meet with, there was an agent in the group who was hiring an associate at the time. Go and meet with him. He's looking for an associate. You'd be perfect for the job. And I remember we just sat down and we spoke about like my sport and like how sort of relentless I was with that growing up, and a bit about like my life. And yeah, he offered me a job and I started in sales. And before I could start, the first thing I had to do was go and watch like, I think it's like 18 hours of Jordan Belfort's Straight Line DVDs. And I got myself a notebook and I wrote a whole notebook worth of notes. And then, yeah, worked in real estate sales for about 4 years, which was just like, again, just such a good next step because it taught me so much about sales, about resilience, about looking after clients, building relationships, all of that.
What was the biggest lesson from Jordan Belfort's Straight Line, the 18 hours?
I think the biggest lesson for me is like, no matter where you go in the conversation, you can bring it back to the line. And so I would always find, and you've witnessed this, like the way that I sell, it seems very unstructured. Like it seems like I'm just building a relationship with the person, talking about them, making them feel comfortable. It's very personal. But I'm always moving them along the line. I'm very conscious of that, and I'm very conscious of bringing them back to the line. I let them go pretty far off the line at times, but I'm very intentional in how I operate. And I think that set me up to sell in a way that feels very authentic for me, and it feels like I'm still I'm protecting the relationship with the person. I'm not just kind of like talking through a script and moving them where I want them to go. Like I'm kind of allowing them to lead a little bit in parts and letting them do most of the talking, and then I can ask questions that they're not they seem still personal, but it's bringing them on the line and I'm moving them closer to a sale because I could see that sales could become very unstructured for someone like me who does like a chat.
A little bit of a talker.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something we have in common as well. That was my first sales education, was the great JB. And so that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that.
You didn't know that? I said
know.
that on your episode, so I'm glad you're listening.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
No. I think I've said it multiple times, but yeah, it's cool.
Really?
Wow. Chris, really, I knew sometimes she'd check out, but now I'm like...
I'm very engaged at the moment. So so you're in real estate and you're in sales, and so you didn't think you're a salesperson. You got, swiftly corrected on that. You are a salesperson and you're going to start working in sales. And so you started working in real estate sales. How long did you last?
I was there for about 4 years in total, which in the real estate world is pretty long. Like there weren't really times that I wanted to leave, to be honest. Like, there were certainly days where I was like, holy shit. And I was young. Like, I think back now, at the time, I didn't feel like I was young. I mean, you never do. I felt like I was wise beyond my years, but I was like 20 years old selling like 2 mil waterfronts, which at the time, it doesn't seem like much money now, but at the time, that was a big price tag for a home. So the people I was dealing with were like, you know, owned businesses, like very successful businesses. Like, they were high net worth individuals. But yeah, I think I was just always myself, which kind of helped like build those relationships. But looking back now, I was like, there is no way. Like, if we had someone that age, there's no way I'd have them working on.
You wouldn't get them on the 2 mil waterfronts.
No.
On the big jobs. And so I do remember that you studied positive psychology, and you started that during your real estate career. What sort of led to that? Because at some stage you started recruitment, and the decision to study positive psychology, it's nothing to do with property, really. It's about people. So what got you interested in people? When did you start sort of thinking of studying that, and where did that start for you?
So I'd always been interested in psychology. I guess, again, I didn't think we'd go down this path in the podcast, but I think it's important to share that when I was growing up, I sort of came from a pretty tough environment, and one of my parents had some fairly big addiction issues. So that really influenced a lot of my childhood, and sort of, I guess, in some ways helped me and my brothers grow up quite quickly. But it sort of really also sparked this like fascination within me around humans and human behavior, and like why humans make certain decisions that kind of lead to behavior that isn't really helping them move towards a positive outcome. And so I was always really fascinated about that. In high school, as I mentioned, I was probably seen as like a little bit of a naughty kid. And so I remember my career advisor said, like, you wouldn't be able to do psychology because it's going to cost you a lot of money. You have to do like a placement. Your family doesn't have much money, so you wouldn't really be able to fund that. And so I sort of just said, well, I'm not really up to doing a psychology degree because it didn't seem achievable. But I was always really, really fascinated in like behavior change, what caused certain behaviors in people. And I witnessed a lot, obviously learning sales, it's a lot about human behavior and psychology. And so I'd found myself now in this role where psychology was a big part of what I was doing. And so I'd started just doing a lot of self-paced learning. Like, I was listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson. I was, doing a lot of kind of like leadership programs, personal development. I'd started working with coaches, and I'd landed back in this space where, I was kind of, I'd now kind of correlated. I'm glad I didn't do the psychology degree because I did start actually in psychology, like a science degree. But what I found was that it was a lot around kind of like clinical disorders. Fixing
broken people.
Yeah, and not what I wanted to get into psychology for was creating positive change and enhancing performance, whereas the psychology degree I was doing was kind of like getting broken people back to neutral, or just getting them back to like not being as broken. And a lot of that,
up.
Yeah, and a lot of that was through, the use of pharmaceuticals, which doesn't really align with me either. So I was like, this isn't really for me. But what I became fascinated in, and because working in an environment, in a workplace that really fostered that high performance and that personal growth, had really changed my life, and like seriously changed. I hadn't come from that at all. And so being around people who really valued that and invested in themselves and were working on themselves really, really changed things for me. And so I became really fascinated in organizational psychology and how the workplace impacts impacts the employees, and how the employees impact the workplace. I was also working in a team, so I was part of a small team under a lead agent, and so I became really fascinated in personalities and how different personalities and strengths impact the dynamic of a team. And
Give us an example. What was the what made you fascinated? Was there something that was going on the team?
there wasn't anything going on the team, actually. We were actually a really high-performing team. And so we were really well-balanced. Like
Boring.
I know. I'd love to tell you that. I mean, there's plenty of goss, plenty of juice in the real estate industry, but unfortunately our team didn't have any. We were really high-performing. We just gelled really well. We worked really well together. But, I mean, there were other teams that I looked at and went, oh, my God, what a fucking shit show. Like, and you could see, like, either they were really similar or they were too different. And, I just got fascinated with, like, how do you form a team that works really well together? Like, what are the ingredients to that? And so I transitioned to organisational psychology, and that was a lot around, just the psychology of the workplace and how that all kind of plays out, all the different aspects of that.
What led you to leaving real estate? Why did you leave and get into recruitment?
I think it was a combination of things. I was really interested in this organisational psychology degree that I was doing. And I was sort of looking at the business that I was in, and it was a big business in terms of real estate, but it wasn't big enough to have somebody who was in HR or performance or recruitment specific role. And then I also had some situations in real estate that came up that I was like, it just really didn't align with me. Like, I'm big on honesty, and I really see that as a very black and white thing. Like, either there's the truth and there's not the truth. And I don't like sitting anywhere I just don't think there's a grey area. I don't like sitting anywhere in a grey area. But I witnessed a lot of grey, dark greys at times in real estate. And I started to struggle to sleep at night. Like, it just didn't sit well with me. And I looked at, like, what's the next 20 years hold for me? And if I want to be successful in this industry, it just came to my attention that at some point I'm going to have to start to play in the grey, because it's going to be really hard to get ahead if I don't, because the competition are very happy to go there. And so, I just decided, look, it's probably time to go. It was really sad because I loved my team. I had a great mentor there. But just took the leap and went into recruitment. Yeah,
well, real estate agents typically are upfront and honest, people.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised by that. And then we moved to recruitment. So this is your career in recruitment. You started working at a blue-collar recruitment agency in Newey, and you quickly became a top performer on the team. So what was that like, your first sort of foray into blue-collar recruitment?
Well, I think what I thought recruitment was and what it actually was were two very different things. Generally, people don't set out to go into recruitment as a career, and I've done a fair bit of work on this with the recruitment industry bodies and stuff to actually try to demonstrate to people that it's a really great career. But we don't do a very good job as recruiters. We don't do a very good job of helping people to understand that. So I thought I had an idea of what it was, and it wasn't that. But my first week, I realised, oh, this is sales. I thought it was HR. Thank fuck it wasn't HR, because HR is boring. It's a terrible job. I mean, there's a lot of great HR professionals out there. I'm sure you love your job, but it's not for me. The first week I was like, oh, this is sales. You could have just said that in the interview. It's sales. I've been doing that, so that's cool. So I figured that out pretty quickly. It's really going into blue collar. It's very fast paced, really high volume. So basically what we were doing temps. And so a company, like a construction company or a manufacturing company, would call us up at, say, 6 a.m. We need, we've had 10 guys call in sick today. We need you to replace at least 7 of them. And then you just have to get on the phone and get your guys. And obviously you don't want to be calling guys cold to be like, hey, can you come and work for me today? And they're like, what's the hourly rate? Where are we going? And they've already had some other recruitment agency who they had a relationship with call them. So it was a lot about proactively building relationships with people who you knew that your client would need at some point. And just having them there warm, ready to go when they got the call that they had to be at work in an hour, get them out there. Before other agencies could. So
they'd have their phone on at what time? What time are you calling?
Oh, I mean, you'd tell them, you'd say, make sure your phone's on. You'd sort of warm them up that they're going to be anytime really.
Because they got to start around 6 a.m, don't they?
They got to
A lot
start,
of these
yeah,
jobs.
yeah. So some of them like very early, very, very early in the morning, we'd be ringing them. And normally wasn't a surprise because we kind of prepped them that that's the way this world works. Yeah.
So you had to get your book of temps and keep them warm, keep the relationships there. And were you dealing with clients as well?
When I first started, I wasn't. When I first started, I was just a resourcer. So that's like the best job in the world. It's so much fun. So I was just working with the candidates, and I was working with who's now one of my best friends, Megan, was the account manager at the time. So she taught me heaps. She trained me in recruitment. She was the account manager. I was the resourcer. We had a good little thing going on. We became like best friends. But about 3 months in, my manager at the time said, "Oh, do you want we want to put you in an account management role?" They gave me like a little desk to start on with like maybe 10 candidates, and then I think within Chanel, my manager at the time, will probably remember this. I don't know, maybe like 2 months or something like that. I'd grown it to like 60 or 70 temps. So they were pretty happy with that.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, they're pretty happy with that. And yeah, I did a few different roles in that business. I ended up working in their specialist team, which was more recruiting more kind of like senior roles and specialised roles. And yeah, that was kind of my foray into recruitment.
Into recruiting. And you became, where were you on the leaderboard then? Where did you finish on the leaderboard?
Megan and I would be in a bit of a tussle regularly on who would be on the top of the leaderboard. She had been there a bit longer and had some big accounts, so often she would get on top. But I would make sure that she wouldn't stay there for long.
It's always good to have the, the nemesis on the team.
Yeah, it was so funny actually. We used to have this dashboard, the consultant dashboard, and it would get released from our data team like every Tuesday morning, and we'd all be sitting there like it was like this Excel spreadsheet that you had to load, and we'd all sit there on a Tuesday morning like pressing this button, loading, like waiting for last week's starter to come in to see who was on top. It was a good bit of healthy competition.
You sometimes got the chocolates, sometimes she did.
Yeah.
All's fair in love and war.
Yeah.
And you were there for how long?
I think it was about 2 years in the end, like 2 years, 2.5 years.
And then you decided, fuck it, I'm going to start my own recruiting business.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and I hadn't really reflected on it at all, really. But with the beauty of hindsight, because I was very much in it for a long time, I was just doing it. But I guess kind of like having some time off, having indie, doing different things now. I've got the opportunity yesterday to talk to somebody, and I was reflecting back on when I started my business. And I was like, fuck, like people kept saying to me, that was really brave. I remember I went to see a financial planner, and I was like, oh, just by the way, I'm going to leave Chandler and I'm going to start my own business. And he's like, why would you do that? And I was like, John, like keep your negativity to yourself. He's like, that's really risky. Why would you do that? And to me, I was like, well, no, it's not, because I earn 80 grand a year. To me, that's 8 placements. If I'm not doing 8 placements in a year, there's something seriously wrong. So I'm just going to do it. And then I learned what it means to start a business.
Yeah, it's a different ball game, isn't it? But you started on your own though. So you went in and you went into real estate. So you got out of blue collar and you went back to where you cut your teeth, and you started on your own.
Yep.
You just went out and you called it SC People.
Yeah. I couldn't come up with a name, so I thought, well, that's easy. One less thing to think about. We'll just call it that. Classic.
But it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say I built quite a decent brand. I think most people, would.
Yep, the pink recruitment agency.
Yeah.
In Newey, and then talk us through the first few months of business. You're in it. You got busy pretty quickly.
I did, yeah. So I was thankful. Like a big thing for me throughout my career has been building a network. It's something that I kind of like did naturally early on, and then I sort of saw the power of that very quickly. And so it's been something that I've been sure to keep doing, and like make sure I maintain focus on it, no matter how busy or far away from delivery I got. I always made sure that I was keeping those relationships. And so I had some really good friends and just people I knew in the industry who gave me introductions, they gave me referrals. And so I didn't even have I remember my first referral came through from Ryan Houston, who's just an amazing person. an agent down in Newcastle, and I said, oh, no, I can't. I'm not ready to take on the referral, Ryan. I'm really sorry. Like, I don't even have like terms of business or anything done up. And he's like, it's okay. Like, just give him a call. He like really wants to help you out. And I signed the business, and I like just made up some little terms of business thing, and took it on. And then I think in my first month I did like 40 grand, and I was like, oh, that's half my salary for the year. This is great. And we kind of just kept growing from there.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you want to get in touch with us, go to the Closers Dojo on Facebook. This is a Facebook group, free Facebook group for anyone looking to sell or build a sales team. We do sales trainings in there. We share a lot of resources. I'm sure you'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah. So it was interesting. And then I sort of got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I never had the intention of it building it into a big business. It was kind of like, I wanted to be creative. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to like work with people I really loved working with, and like just replace my income. That was totally cool. I was happy with 80 grand. I'd done pretty well in property. I wasn't really like looking to make like life-changing money out of building a business. And so I think that being the reason was why it was quite successful quite quickly, because I wasn't like strangling the P&L going, oh, I've got to be 7 figures within 12 months. Like I've got to be doing 6-figure months. So it was just like, oh, this is fun. I like you. I want to help you. I'm enjoying this. I'm being creative and solving problems and all of that stuff that I wanted to get out of it. That was my focus. And so it very organically and naturally kind of just grew, because I think I was bringing that energy to it now that I look back.
Talk us through recruiting real estate agents to an outsider, and now I have been an outsider, and then I was an insider last year when we were pregnant and you were terribly sick for 6 months. And so I assisted with the business, so I got to see, what the world of recruiting real estate agents is like, and it's pretty difficult, and it's a challenge dealing with those candidates and working in a small talent pool. You get a job, and it might be a property manager job, and there's a really small, and it might be a senior property manager job, and so senior property managers, they're hen's teeth. They're not. They're usually in a role, so we have to start looking, and then there's some clients who you're working with who you can't sort of take from, and then you've got clients who you're not working with who might be fair game, and there's everything in between. Talk us through that, the real estate game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, especially in Newcastle. It's a small town. It's a big regional town, but it's still very much a small town, and it's a lot of kind of like small town mentality in some ways, like not in a bad way, but particularly when you're in recruitment, if you take from somebody, you likely know them. They may not be a client, but they're going to know you somehow, and it's never nice taking someone's team member, even if they're going very willingly and whatever else. People don't generally enjoy you poaching their staff. That's not something they love. So that's a really interesting dynamic to it. But at the time as well, like we were in a post-COVID kind of market where it was a candidate short market. Like I spoke to recruiters who'd been recruiting for like 20, 30 years in some cases, and it was the toughest market they had seen ever in terms of being able to find candidates. I mean, if people think back to that time, you may not have been following it closely, but there were lots of like in the US, there were like 6-figure sign-on bonuses being offered to people, equity, like that was not uncommon.
Work from home, benefits.
Whatever you want, you got, because it was so hard to get people. And so I was working with property managers and real estate agents, like very small talent pool already, and then you're in a market where people are offering 20% above market salary. And so it was very competitive. It's really competitive. It sort of just came down, for me, it just came down to building really strong relationships with people. And I've always really focused on, and you know this, but when I recruit, I'm not just recruiting for skill set, I'm recruiting for fit. And so when you're in a candidate short market and it's really, you find someone who could do the job.
But they're not going to fit the business. Or the culture.
It's like, it's so tempting, especially for me. I get paid on the placement. So it's so tempting just to put them in and get paid.
And see how they go, though.
Because you may not find another candidate for another 3 months. So I need to work for another 3 months. So I really had to, like, there were some moments where I really had to, like, have some chats with myself and go, is this the right fit for the business or not? Like, am I wanting to place this person from a place of scarcity and convenience, or is it the best thing? Because it was a really...
So there'd be some jobs that you would take on that would take you 3 to 6 months to fill.
Yeah, and I'd know full well up front that it's going to take me 3 to 6 months. And I was reflecting to you the other day, I think, like, it's not just like 3 to 6 months of me working 9 to 5, like logging in, doing a bit of search, putting a job ad up, speaking to a few people. Like, I would wake up at 4 a.m. and I'd be on Seek contacting people who had updated their resume overnight so that I could get them before the person who they'd applied for saw their application. I was just relentless in it because I knew how competitive it was. And I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, that's a crazy way to work. Definitely not cohesive to having a 6-month-old baby. But at the time,
it got results.
I had to do. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Do what you got to do. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. That's what one of my managers printed out and stuck on my computer once. And it's a little mantra I use quite regularly.
And so, and this is something I was going to ask later on, but what makes you a great recruiter? What do you think makes you a good recruiter? Because, you know, that sort of stuff where you're up in the morning, the crack of dawn, trying to get in before before the candidate speaks to the job that they've applied for. It's tenacity, relationship building. You've been good at this. This is something you've mastered. What makes you great?
That's a really good question. Because there's lots of, I hate using this saying, but there's lots of ways to skin a cat. Like in recruitment, there's lots of things that can make you great at recruitment, and it's different for everybody. So there's lots of great recruiters out there that recruit in a way that I would never recruit, but it works so well for them because that's just their thing. For me, I think like what you've said in terms of relationships, like I'm big on relationships. Like I really hold my relationships very dear to my heart, and I really put a lot of effort and time into them. And I think that works well in recruitment because of what I was saying before. Like when I meet a candidate for a role, I'm not looking at them going, oh, do you give me what I need right now or not? Because if not, like get out of my office and stop wasting my time. I'm sort of just looking at them as a person, you know, what are their strengths? Where would they fit? What are their values? And then I've been quite good at, if someone's not right for me right now, I won't ever just kind of discount them and never speak to them again. Like I've been quite good at nurturing that relationship and even finding them an opportunity. Like I've done a lot of what we would call a float or reverse marketing, where I meet someone and I go, oh my God, I don't work with this client, but I know I know some people in that team and I know what their culture's like, and I actually think you'd be a really good fit. And so reaching out to that business and saying, hey, like I've just met someone who I think would be a good fit for you. They've got the right skill set, blah, blah, blah. Are you open to meeting them? And I've been able to generate a lot of business that way, which I think is, you know, if you can do that in recruitment, that's great.
And that's been evident in the past few weeks, where I believe that all of our placements have come from talent pool. They haven't come from an application where we've put a job ad up. The recent placements that we've had have come from, you know, the talent pool that you've been nurturing.
Yeah, I think pretty much all of them. Maybe one or two have applied for a job. But there's been some cases as well, like in the last couple of weeks, where we've placed a candidate who the client didn't want to interview at first. And so I've had to, I get quite passionate when I think someone's a good fit. So I like strongly encourage them, hey, like it's only half an hour of your life and I think they're actually going to be a really good fit. Interview this person. And yeah, I've had the client walk away going like, oh, thank God we interviewed them. Like they're perfect and they've now got the job, and that's really cool. So yeah, I think I'm just so focused on that fit, which I think above anything else, that's the thing that works for me.
And so we learned some hard lessons. I mean, you know, in business, building a business you've got like the E-Myth, the book at the E-Myth. You've got the entrepreneur, the manager, and the doer. The doer. So
it's
it's the doer, it's the, you know, in your case, it's the recruiter, and then you've got the manager of recruiters or the team, and then you've got the entrepreneur, the visionary who's going to lead the business forward. And within every one of us, there's all three, and there's that tussle between, the person who's really, really good at doing the work, the person who's really, really good at managing the team, and then the person who's really good at sort of building the vision. So you build a team, and you went from being the recruiter to then the manager, and there were some challenges there, and you built a very successful team, but also you won some awards as well. You were hunter, businesswoman, or young leader.
Yes, I was actually. Yeah.
You won some
really
awards
nice.
in business, so you've got some accolades. Couple of
Plaques on the wall.
things in the trophy cabinet. But also, I mean that's a whole other story, building a business versus just being really great at what you do.
Yeah. It definitely is. And I mean, I could probably do a whole other podcast on the lessons I learned in 6 months' time. I mean, I went through a pretty rough time in that 6 months as well. Like I left a relationship that was I'd been in for a long time, and so I had lots of strings to untangle there, and that went just say he wasn't super happy about the relationship ending, and so I had to manage that. It was like a crisis management situation that was going on one hand, but I also had like a 6-month-old business, and I think at the point I had like 8 staff. So like brand new business, a whole bunch of people who were relying on me to look after them.
Have your shit together.
Have my shit together, yeah, and also like feed their families, and they came to me with their own reasons, which all staff do, and one of the big ones for the guys that I had on board was they wanted to be trained by me, and I quite quickly realised that like you can only spin so many plates. I had to keep the cash flow obviously of the business under control, and deal with that situation where I had like clients getting called every day saying things about me, and thankfully my clients were great people and they didn't really care or listen to any of it, but that's never nice when you've got like that sort of stuff going on in the background. I think as a business owner, when things are good at home, everything's really easy, like super easy. Like running a business isn't all that hard, like when you know things are good at home, and like thankfully with us that's one thing we don't have to worry about, but when it's not good at home, like business becomes exponentially harder. And so that was really tough. Like there were days where I was like, I'd have things happen and I'd just have to like walk out the front, go for a quick drive around the block, have a bit of a cry in the car and then come back in, pretend everything's okay, because I didn't want my team to be worried or distracted. So that was really interesting. But then also learning how to manage people. I guess I'd kind of been like a bit of a team leader before, but I'd never really been a manager. And I don't know that I'm really a manager. Like I've probably got my own kind of management style, and I don't know. It's probably cohesive to working with really, really high performers who don't need much management. Like you give them the goal. I'm quite a high level person. And I think giving someone a goal that they can work towards is great, or like a North Star. My management style is probably good for people who like that and they're happy to fill in the blanks on how to get there. The guys I was working with at the time, they really wanted direction. Like they really wanted like really broken down KPIs, clear roadmap to get there. And rightfully so, they weren't super experienced. So that's fair. But it wasn't a great fit, ironically. Work on the fit so well for my clients, but ironically for me, I chose the wrong fit in the staff that I had at the time. And so I had to sort of unwind some things like that.
And then we got together. So we went away. We had our first date, the 6-week first date in Panama, New York, Mexico. Got back within, I'd say, a month. We decided that you were moving up to Queensland, away from your talent pool and away from the business, the very in-person business of real estate recruitment. So you moved up to Queensland. You were running the business. We got pregnant pretty quickly, and then you had a horrendous pregnancy and you were bedridden for 6 months pretty much. And so for that 6-month period, it was Big Daddy who had to step in.
Yeah. My team were like, "Whoa, what's going on? Who is this guy?"
Who's this guy that calls himself Big Daddy?
Literally Daddy at that point, because I was pregnant, but my team didn't know, and And I was so sick, so sick, like vomiting before our calls. It was like, it was just tough. And we didn't know that I actually had an illness at that point either. So we were just like fumbling our way through it. And then, Big Daddy stepped in, and I mean...
We don't have to call me Big Daddy.
I like it. We can do that in private.
We already do. So, but look,
Sorry to my family if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are.
That all led to the decision to kind of exit the business, or as it stood, because we were in Queensland. We were doing great work as well, by the way. We had some of our, SC people had record months while we were in Queensland while you were sick, with a new team, and so we had some incredible months. But we had a decision to make. We had to decide whether or not we were going to go full steam ahead and continue with the business as it was, like a recruiting business focused on real estate agents and property managers in the Hunter region, whilst living in Queensland. So that decision was either we need to move back to Newcastle, or we stay in Queensland. And we love the Goldie.
We love the Goldie.
We're not leaving.
Yeah, we're not leaving the Goldie.
The decision was, well, we need to pivot. Yeah, is the word for it. We need to pivot, and so we had the baby. You went on mat leave, and it was a good time to pivot. And so now we've pivoted to salespeople, remote salespeople, high ticket salespeople. How have you found that to be a different? Because it feels like a dream.
It's a dream, yeah.
Versus the short talent pool, specific roles, 6 month placement, 6 months to fill a role, hustling every day, to now being able to build a really strong talent pool. We've got a really high performing Facebook group where we start to nurture our talent pool. So how's it been for you? What's the observations that you've made, sort of moving from that game into where we're at now?
Yeah, well, I really love it. Like, I feel like what we're doing at the moment is, like I'm kind of in my, when they talk about like ikigai, I just feel like I'm in my ikigai at the moment.
Good at, paid for.
What's the last one?
Good at, paid for, enjoy.
We're going to have to look that up. Whatever it is, I believe this is the feeling. But feels like it comes really easy to me. And I think the reason is because it really aligns with me. Like, going way back to when I first started my career, like one of the big values for me, and it's still really true. I've actually got like a tattoo, another story. I've got a tattoo on the back of my neck, and it's like a Chinese symbol for freedom. Ironically, I got it when I was in Bali when I was 15 without my parents, so it doesn't get more free than that. Mm-hmm. But, anyway, so from a young age, freedom was always one of my values, and it still is now. And I think that's one of the things that I get so excited about in the work that we're doing at the moment, is we're creating so much freedom for people, for our clients who are building out sales teams. They get to take themselves out of sales and go and do whatever it is that they're passionate about, whether it be that they are that visionary and they want to create more, or whatever it is, it creates that freedom for them. It's creating freedom for our candidates, because a lot of our candidates have worked in sales for a number of years. They might be in real estate or doing something else that requires them to be physically there. And if you're in real estate, or if you know anything about it, like, often that comes at a cost. To be successful in real estate comes at a very big cost, and it's unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that cost is your family, because you're not often there. You're in a very high stress job. It's very competitive, and you see a lot of people, unfortunately, their personal life falls apart. And so, like watching guys and girls who are just like so good at what they do, but they can go and put that effort into something that still allows them to, wake up and spend a couple of hours with their family in the morning, and then go to the office, knock out a couple of hours of work, have lunch with their wife and kids, go back to work, how we live our lives, which is, it's just such a different way to do things. And I think that's why I'm loving what we're doing so much at the moment. Yeah,
we're in flow.
Yeah, we're definitely in flow. Yeah, which is a big thing for us, like our values. When we think about our values,
it is
flow, joy.
I think it's on our. We do have a relationship values Google document. Yep. And flow and ease is one of our values. It has to. Things have to feel like we're in flight. We can't be swimming against the tide. It certainly has felt that way with where we're at now.
Yeah.
And with this type of space. And I feel very excited by bringing, by working with you, with all your experience and what you're bringing to this space, which is typically, from what I've seen over the past 6 years in this sort of space, in this sales, this online kind of high ticket space, I've seen a lot of sales trainers and a lot of people who kind of are good at sales decide they want to start a recruiting business or decide they want to start placing candidates. And, there's some of them that are naturally, they're doing good, but there's a lot of them that are really shit.
Yeah.
And the work I've seen you do and the work I've seen us do is just, it's first rate. It's coming with, insane experience. It's coming with quality. There's a lot of thought put into each placement, and the professional work that you're doing with all of our clients as well is just next level. So I'm super, super stoked on that. But this is my last question. What do most recruiters get wrong?
There's lots of different things that recruiters can get wrong. It's different for every person. I mean, some of them are too focused on being technical and they forget the relationship.
I think some of them are sloppy, just generally sloppy.
In our space. Well, let's just go in our space.
Yeah, in our space. So let's say hypothetically one of our clients who we're working with now, they decide to.
Oh my God! Don't even say it. Go with another recruiter.
Go with another, or maybe just in the past they've had experiences with. We've got clients now who've worked with people who kind of are part-time recruiters, part-time sales coach, part-time, sales manager of some sales team.
Yeah.
And the recruiting service has been fucking terrible, and the candidates have been rubbish.
Yeah.
So what do you think they're getting wrong there, and how could they improve?
Well, I think they've got to remember that they're dealing with salespeople, so they can sell themselves. They can talk. They can tell you that they're good at sales. Like, they're very convincing. They've probably had some training in selling, you would hope. But I think when you're recruiting salespeople, it's very different to recruiting an IT professional who can show you that they can code.
They've got technical skills.
They've got technical skills. Recruiting a salesperson, you've got to kind of cut through what you're hearing, because the words that they're saying can be right, but how they're saying them can be wrong. It's very similar to sales. Like, it is very similar to sales. But, yeah, I think just cutting through what the person is saying, I think it helps as well. Like, I definitely lean on what I've studied a lot. Like, I lean on my studies a heap. So just having some knowledge of the theory really helps to apply when you're interviewing somebody. And also just being thorough. There are some very serious things that you can get wrong in recruitment that can seriously impact a business. Like, big claims can come against a business if you fuck up the recruitment. So doing things like references and proper references. I bang on about this, but it's seriously, it's so important that you do proper references for the people that you're bringing on. You might know them, you might think they're amazing, but there is lots and lots of compliance and kind of risk mitigation that comes out of doing references and checks, and just making sure that everything's the checks and balances. The I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
I always get that wrong. I always say the I's are crossed and the T's are dotted.
T's are dotted. Whatever you do, just cross some and I's and dots and
just have attention to detail.
Just be thorough. Just be thorough in your process. Yeah. So I think that's a big one.
Okay, the John Farnham last question. So I know the last question was the last, but this is actually the last. Biggest lesson over the journey?
There's been a lot of lessons. I've had some really hard lessons too. Some really tough lessons. All my own fault, 100% me. But I think the biggest one is just remembering your why, staying connected to why you're doing what you're doing, because often it's got nothing to do with money. Like, what I've found, I ask a lot of people. I generally find out a bit about why people are doing what they're doing when I interview them, and for most people, it's not money. And if they say it's money, you find out later that actually it's money because of something else. And so for me, it's always been that I want freedom to be creative, to solve unique problems, to have fun with what I'm doing. And the times where I've found myself like scrutinizing the P&L or like stressing over like costs and all of that sort of stuff, where I'm feeling like I'm just strangling what I'm doing, or I'm trying to like push too hard to hit a certain target for the month or whatever. That's when I generally I just stuff things up and things start to go wrong. I start to attract issues. Like I just feel like those are the times where I get emails from candidates saying I'm pulling out of a role, or like just negative things start to come my way. And I feel like it comes from my energy, where I'm just focusing on the wrong things. I'm trying to strangle it. Rather than just being in abundance and focusing on my why, which is that, the creativity, the fun, the being in my flow. So I think that, I don't know if that explains the lesson.
That's a great one.
I think
it's a great one. I think just constantly realigning with it.
Yeah.
Well, Sharni, the Sharni-Sode. This has been a pleasure and a real journey. And
thank you.
I hope the listeners have learnt something, and I'm sure they've gotten some value.
I hope so. Yeah, I kind of feel like, sometimes like one of my big roles in life is being your hype girl. I like from the beginning. I'm like, that's definitely a role that I really value because you're so amazing. And sometimes I think people are like, "Oh, who is Sharni? Where does she kind of come into all of this?" So I'm glad I could share a bit about.
She's not just a hype girl. She's
she's
got a lot of depth and a lot of talent, and crushing it. So thanks for jumping on. This has been a fantastic episode. See you on the next one.
Love you so much.
You too.